Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon and an enthusiastic welcome to all of you who have joined us at this event. I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead, ETHRWORLD, and your host. As you are aware, we've come together to not just meet and greet, but be a part of an insightful learning session with the leaders of the pharma industry who will help us crack the code to design future-ready work and workers in the pharma industry. The entire duration of this event is 90 minutes, comprising an energizing keynote session, followed by a power-packed panel discussion. Before I raise the curtain and call out the keynote speaker, I will introduce the topic briefly so that you're aware of what is coming your way. According to the published bulletin by the Reserve Bank, India ranks third worldwide for pharmaceutical production by volume and 14th by value. The pharma industry contributes about 2% to the GDP and around 8% to the country's total merchandise exports. The sensational story is that this sector exhibited resilience to many economic shocks. And this can be substantiated by India's more than 18% growth in exports of pharmaceuticals during 2020 to 21, when the unprecedented pandemic hit us. Understandably, this growth is a result of steady innovation in critical drugs and vaccine, leading the Indian pharma industry to take a giant leap and positioning itself strongly in global markets. We understand that from the pandemic to the Great Resignation and the present political crisis, technology has been the constant force enabling teams to overhaul disruption in the ecosystem and remain steadfast in market domination. This event, co-created by ETHRWorld and SAP, will make a deliberate effort to deep dive into the pharma sector's process complexities, technology platform adaptation, and tech vision of the future to design an employee-centric workplace, empowering the work and the worker. In this event, the policymakers of this industry will share their game plan of devising proactive instead of reactive talent policies and processes. To that point, dear viewers, I'd like to welcome the keynote speaker of this event to share with us how automation led to innovation and discerning tech tools that enhanced employee productivity, experience, and efficiency. Please join me in welcoming Sapna Purohit, SVP and Head HR, Sun Pharma. Sapna has over 25 years of experience and has led teams in the public, private, and education sector. She is an alumni of the coveted Haas Business School, where she studied organization behavior and international business in the year 2006. Prior to Sun Pharma, she has held senior HR leadership positions at Reliance Power, Reliance Infrastructure, and Maharashtra State Electricity Transmission Company. Her areas of expertise are organizational development, performance management, talent management, and employee engagement. I wholeheartedly welcome you to this event. The floor is all yours, Dr. Sapna.
Thank you, Pooja. It's truly an honor and privilege to be here. I'm truly delighted to share our journeys and our experiences during this period, what we have learned and how it can help others. So I would say, first of all, pandemic has impacted everyone. It has impacted pharma too. And we being in the essential services, for us, it was all the more important that our employees work during this period. And a few things which helped us and which has helped all of us in this sector, these learnings probably will help us in creating the future ready organizations. So point number one, which comes to my mind is the purpose. Because this time when people were very, very worried about their health, their security, safety, etc., our people were coming throughout the pandemic. They had to come to their manufacturing site. They had to work all the hours. They rather had to stretch themselves. And one thing which has really helped is the purpose of the organization. Because in pharma, we being in essential services, it was extremely important that our people up to the ground level understand that we are in a serious business of healthcare and where our work is going to support people during these tough times of pandemic. So I feel that in future also, all the organizations, if they can build a very strong sense of purpose, that would be extremely important in all dynamic or different situations, which could be unpredictable. The second thing which comes to my mind is, while building the purpose, communicating up to the last level and telling them that what they are doing is not a simple work. Like I'll give you an example. In our organization, at the grassroots level, at the technician and operator level also, their training program shares with them that, you know, what product they are making and how it is going to impact thousands or lakhs of lives. And rather, they are going to be life-saving for other people. So this kind of a communication of purpose really, really helps. And we should not ignore it. And especially in the coming times when people will be in diverse corners, in different corners of the world, it will be all the more important that you communicate all the important things which are related to your purpose. The second thing is, of course, which is values and culture. The distinctness of an organization is defined by the values and the culture which the organization represents. If I say very simply that we are a very simple organization, a very family-like organization where the focus is on the outcome, the focus is on the result, the focus is on the work. And therefore, no other things would be important. Instead, for each one of us, rather the new joiner or a person who's worked for years, would be aligned on this common thread that, okay, we all are working with a value system, which is focused on the results, which is focused on the outcomes, which is focused on the things which we can help the organization building up. So these are a few things which I feel would be extremely important, because this is what we learned during these tough times. And therefore, the future ready organizations would have to build a very strong purpose, value, and culture. The second point which comes to my mind is, of course, that we all reflected that these were the times when very quick decision making, very fast ownership, accountability, delivery, all these things were extremely important, even if the situation was opaque sometimes or the areas were gray. What we had to quickly decide was what is right and how it has to be done. So speed was so important that the organization or traditional organization structures kind of got molded and the teams emerged which were working together for a purpose. If the purpose was delivery of the medicine in all these difficult circumstances of supply chain, what we had to find was a way to deliver, or find a way to actually achieve what is expected. So therefore, reflecting on the existing organization structures, that do they still exist or serve the purpose, or they need to be modified. I think all of us learned, and maybe this would be the future trend, would be how do we flatten the organization structures, which means less number of layers help us in building a faster decision making, better accountability, more ownership, and empowerment of the teams. To a large extent, I would say this was a big second learning, and which will be extremely helpful for the coming years for the future ready organization. Because now gone are the days when everything was stable and you could standardize and you could, you know, create structures which would serve a particular purpose. Even if they were metrics, they were very, very complex. So now how do we create structures which are really agile, flexible, which are focused on the outcomes? And maybe, you know, once that project or that deliverable is served, then how do they quickly move to the another priority or another area of focus? So this kind of an agility of thought in terms of organization structures probably would be extremely important and would help the organizations in becoming future ready. Third thing, of course, which comes to my mind and which we all experienced is talent. In the coming years, and especially with the new generations getting added to the workforce, it will be extremely important that we attract the best talent, we retain them, we develop them, we nurture them, and they become our future leaders. So organizations require stability, organizations require a certain consistency, and that only happens once we can build talent, or we can really create a talent which is ready to take any positions. So my take on this was that during these times, we all realized that things worked wonderfully when there was a capable person handling the situation in a manner which was focused on the individual, the team, and the organization. So I think all of us will have to focus and we'll have to treat talent as really the capital which has to be nurtured and grown, so that the organizations are really not only ready for future, but any kind of contingencies. And they would be the ones, they would be the differentiating factors, how talent will carry these situations, or will move through these situations, and organization would be benefiting. To an extent, it will not be exaggeration if we say that future ready organizations have to be people centric, which means the main center of the organization has to be people. And then whether it's structure, systems, processes, technology, everything should be built around it. And therefore, I would say I'll move to the fourth point, which is technology. So what we realized was that in these times, if we could have an integrated technology is going to be that piece which would really join the organization. And in all areas, whether it is manufacturing or R&D or our distribution networks or our HR processes, technology could be extremely helpful in moving people to work from home or bringing them back to offices or delivering the results during these tough times, or connecting with different teams spread across the globe. So 37,000 people spread across the globe, if they had to still work as if things are normal, then it was technology which has immensely been of the or immensely has been useful or helpful. Having a single source of truth. So from wherever you are accessing the data or information, you have a single source which is reliable, can only happen once we are based on the technology platforms. I think globally, everyone realized that these were the times where how quickly you could adopt to technology, or how quickly you could learn or unlearn your previous ways and you could adapt to the new ways was extremely helpful. So therefore, technology has been another major area which has been extremely important during these times and is going to be important in the coming times. And gone are the days when people used to worry that if technology comes, people's jobs would be impacted. Rather, I would say technology has really helped people to reduce the jobs which were monotonous or repetitive. And now they can have better jobs like connecting with people or doing the data analytics and acting on the priorities, and therefore making people more effective in this entire journey. The last and fifth most important point I feel is in the coming years, and especially for future, right, starting from now, would be that we can build a learning culture. So learning culture would be extremely important because there'll be a lot of unlearnings, relearnings, upskillings, reskillings would be required in the coming years when circumstances would change very fast. The whole ecosystem is changing so fast with a lot of new startups coming to the picture, a lot of agile organizations coming to the picture. It will be extremely important that all organizations like us, the big ones also, start thinking that how quickly we can build a culture of learning. And I would say most of us, and the best part is in pharma, that we were not competing against each other. We all were collaborating. We all were sharing our ideas. We all were benefiting from each other. And therefore, it has saved a lot of time and we all could move fast in these tough times. And therefore, learning agility or building that kind of a culture where people are keen to learn new skills, they are ready to move into new roles, and they are ready to adapt to this new reality would be immensely helpful. And how we can build it, again, what I feel is, in our example, we thought that classroom trainings were not possible because you could not have more than maybe 10 or 15 people in a room due to social distancing or due to hygiene factors. And therefore, it became extremely important that how do we create platforms which are easy to access, which could be mobile friendly. People could really do the trainings as and when they wanted, as and when they required, and therefore giving them ownership of their own development, ownership of their own learning journey has been extremely important. To an extent, the new generation which is coming is much more comfortable. But if the big number moves to those platforms, a big number starts investing in themselves through the platforms which we have created, the entire ecosystem becomes much more agile. And people start thinking that there is an opportunity for me provided by the organization to learn and grow within the organization, and that to an extent is immensely helpful. And in coming years, when gone are the days when people would keep doing the same things for next 15 or 20 years, these kind of opportunities for people, this kind of a culture of encouragement and appreciation of those people who invest in themselves, who grow, who take challenge, who take risks of doing different things by learning new skills, would be extremely important. So I'm honestly very, very happy to share that these 5 points are the ones which has been our learning in this time, and we feel collectively that all of us have discussed, shared, and worked together to build that how we all can move ahead. And fortunately, we all could very frankly and openly discuss that what are the things which could be done fast on priority, and which are the things which will take some time and we'll be able to explore in a few years' time or in a few months' time. So this is what I'm very happy to share with you. I hope it is useful, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sapna, for setting the fabulous tone for this event. You have given us great understanding of the latest trends shaping the work and the worker in the pharma industry. Your take on the importance of having agile organizational structures that are outcome-driven, as well as attracting, retaining, developing the best talent, and building leaders of future for future is extremely important. Dear viewers, we have the panel discussion next, and you will also be an integral part of this discussion through the chat tab. Please share your questions for the esteemed panel right from the beginning, as I want to make this session as interactive as possible. We will come back with the panel discussion very shortly. So viewers, please join me in welcoming the speakers of this roundtable. We have with us Dr. Tanaya Mishra, Global CHRO Strides, Yashwant Mahadik, President Global HR and Co-Lead Business Transformation Office, Lupin Global, Rajoshi Ganguly, President and Global HR Head, Alchem Laboratories, Shivaditya Banerjee, Head HR India, Piramal Pharma Solutions, Deep Kaur, Director Human Experience Management, SAP. Thank you for joining us, all of you. To begin with, I'd like to say industrial updates reveal a skewed tech acceleration in the pharma industry with discerning gaps in operations, people processes, flow of work, and talent empowerment. I'd like to invite Shivaditya to share an overview of tech adaptation in the pharma sector and also compare and contrast it with other industries. Over to you, Shivaditya.
Thank you, Pooja, and very good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to join an illustrious panel, as a co-panelist here, and we can of course share and learn from each other. So coming back to your question, Pooja, I think it's important for us to first draw parallels between how a pharma industry operates and how other industries do. I think one of the key differentiators for pharma is the fact that there's an entire regulatory ecosystem around it. It's a very highly regulated environment in which pharma operates. Just to give you some relevance in terms of pointers specifically, a drug which gets discovered, and the time that it becomes commercially available in the market, the cycle takes 15 years, and bulk of it is core chemistry, and large part of it is trials, the preclinical trials which happen on rodents, animals, the clinical trials which happen on humans, which happen in 4 stages. Now, the core chemistry and these trials is not something that you would ideally like technology to replace in any way. If you have to use technology, it has to be used at a place where it enables and does not sort of circumvent. And that is one of the reasons you will see that this time span of 15 years is not substantially reducing. A lot of computer modeling and stuff like that has been tried just to see at what kind of compounds go in together such that the failure rate can be reduced of getting the new blockbuster drug. But that's the nature of the industry. The cycle, gestation period for a new drug is very high. And when I speak about drugs which are existing, which are generic drugs, whose recipe is out, in the market and anybody can make it, the fact that the atmosphere is regulated, it's highly SOP driven, and the impact of change in a process because of technology has significant impact on the next process and the input process. So what happens is the interdependencies need to be ironed out so well that technology has to be seen from a very holistic lens. And that's where you'll always see that, there's a lot of validation that happens for any software, any technology that you try to bring in. And, and those are the cycles, which any pharma industry has to undergo, so they take some time, of course, not inordinate time, but they certainly take time, and, it's there in the process. And needless to say, because this psyche, sometimes pervades, in everybody, associated with pharma, there's always that lens, with which we operate. And hence, sometimes you'll see that technology adoption, takes a little bit more time than others. But having said that, this does not mean that, there's no cutting edge technology that happens, in pharma. I can, certainly tell you packaging, where most of your chemistry is done and you just need to make, tablets and capsules and whatnot. I think you'll see, cutting edge state of the art machinery there. A lot of documentation needs to happen, because it's pharma and the documentation needs to be preserved for a long, long time. A lot of information needs to be generated for every lab test that happens. All of that, there's tremendous opportunity to, automate, and all of it is also being pursued. And nevertheless, I think, it's important for us to know few other things like, the planning, procurement, the warehouse management, the entry and exit of material, all of it, I think beautifully is being, automated to the extent possible. All organizations, I can speak on behalf of others here also, either have undergone a journey or are in the process of undergoing that journey. But, I think one important thing to draw here, Pooja, is that, there's, the data initially used to give you information, then it started giving you insight. From that insight, I try to draw foresight and try to see if the data can give me predictive powers. And from predictive, we want to go into prescriptive mode, where I want that if this is the end state I want to reach, the data analytics should be able to tell me how to reach there. So, this entire continuum, if you look at, I think we would be somewhere in the middle, right? But certainly, we are there, and more importantly to the attendees here, I want to share that, some of the things that I'm sharing is nature of the industry. It's not constraints. And the idea is not to circumvent them, but to integrate them in order to see that we are able to be successful. One last thing, which, before I forget, I think I need to add, if you speak from the consumer side, you'll have to realize that, we are a B2C eventually. You could be a B2B2C, but your end consumer is a consumer who is unwell. He's a patient, right? He's not a regular consumer, who's having chips. And the idea is, because we cannot advertise prescription drugs, there's a big layer of a physician, who's the actual influencer, with the help of which we reach out to the end consumer. So the direct engagement and whatever little automation, there are many companies who are trying to reach out to the consumer to, elevate the experience. That's not a channel that we need to navigate seamlessly, unidirectionally. So those are certain elements which are nuances, which also play a role, and hence give very unique opportunities for us to use technology for, any transformation and automation.
Those were fabulous insights, Shivaditya. It actually gives a very, very vivid picture of the pharma industry to, some of laymen like me, so as to say. And what I'm picking up is this industry is highly regulated. And secondly, a gestation period of a new drug could be as high and as long as 15 years. So when we talk about automation speeding up things, there are constraints involved. I'd like to invite any other speaker who would like to give a follow-up point on the nuances of this particular industry.
Actually, Pooja, I have a slightly differing point of view. Having worked in a tech company before, there are areas where I think that digitization is at its peak. For instance, if you look at a tech company like, say, an Accenture or a Capgemini or any of these, and the fact that they have chatbots and they have AI. I think we also have chatbots and we do have AI in creating the entire employee experience for people. Yashwant, we're meeting for the first time, but I've heard that you did some fabulous work on COVID. And I believe you broke them down into streams, work streams, and a lot of work happened around COVID. Some of the initiatives that tech companies have is obviously they are for them digital is key, and that's really what is important for them. But if you look at a pharma company in terms of the production, or in terms of the S&OP or supply chain, or for that matter, the shipments, I think we do use cutting edge technology, because not just for FDA, but for us to be ahead of time. Now, what Shivaditya said is there are two types. Like, we are a generics company. So a generics company doesn't necessarily have a long gestation period. We have to be very quick and agile. And that's really what it is at this point in time. It's a VUCA world, it's an agile world. And we need to ensure that, we protect the patient that's out there. So since it was not a main key question, I just thought I'd jump in and say.
Yes, sure. We'll make this discussion very conversational. So I'd request you all to please come with your points whenever you want to and need to. For the viewers who are joining us now, I'd remind you that you are an integral part of this session. Please share your questions for the panel right from the beginning. We want to make this session very interactive for you. Moving on, from the pandemic, then the Great Resignation has moved the needle to employee-centric workplaces, making it an imperative for businesses' competitive advantage. Let's understand from our panel, why is laying the foundation of a human-centric workplace HR's key agenda to support business and innovations? Rajarshi?
Yeah, hi, good evening to one and all, and thank you, Pooja. Thanks, Shivaditya and my other co-panelists. So, my take on this is, why laying the foundation of a human-centric workplace is important, and HR has to play a role. Because let's understand, we all should create a workplace where almost many of us nowadays spend a majority time of our, waking hours in the workplace, whether it's an office or a factory or a research, or even a sales environment where people may not be actually working in a workplace, but they make the work happen. So I think it's very important that we create a workplace where everybody flourishes. People, they look forward, they come with energy, and they give in the best. It's also important, to understand that very often the objects and people who are around us, they influence our productivity. So while people part is a separate part, here we will talk more about the human-centric workplace. In today's world, if you look at, many things, many workplace where even HR is getting involved in the design, is to create a workplace where, people can really, collaborate well, where even the office settings are, very different than what it used to be in a classical setting. In a classical setting, you created workplace around a location or a work. Today, you also keep in mind the human beings who will be actually working. So you look for, does the workplace or, the different technology that you use, does it enable flexibility, collaboration? We work a lot on wellness also, employee wellness, because that really, makes one feel energized all the day round. The tools and techniques that you use, the learning and development opportunity, even is the workplace very inclusive. So I think there are various nuggets of things which goes today in the workplace design. I'll maybe give you an example. In the few years back, we were designing a workplace in a formulation plant. And typically, as you know, in pharma, a formulation plant is a very common thing, and the project team designs and goes, and there are very standard layouts. We did a time and motion study, and we brought in few changes, and that was a result of something that we were doing in my earlier company. We found the efficiency, doubled with slight modification changes, and it did not come in the way of, the FDA regulations or other, which are often cited as a reason for not to make changes, but minor changes, helped us to kind of, reduce multitasking, reduce the number of repetition at work. So all this, if you look at, plus with the lot of technology that we are using today, and if these technologies are made very simple, very easy to adapt, it really creates a huge amount of growth and innovation in the company. And I think that's where HR today is playing a role in all types of workplace design, not just the office, it's also the factory and the other research and other environment. So that's my take here.
Thank you, Rajoshi. That's really interesting. I'd like to get Yashwant in now, and thanks Sanaya for giving us a heads up that he did amazing work on employee experience during the pandemic. So who could be better than help us understand what are the building blocks of an employee-centric workplace?
Yeah, no, thank you, Pooja, and thank you, Dr. Tanaya, also for that mention. But I think, yes, we did a exemplary job, but it was not me, it was the entire team. But also I want to compliment the entire pharma industry of India, because I truly believe they all did a super job, okay? And the reason is because, you see, by law and by the nature of the industry that we are in, we had to keep working. Pharma industry never shut down, right? Even for a day throughout the pandemic. Now, it brought its own challenges. There were days where we couldn't get more than 10%, 15% of our workers in the factories, etc. But our factories, R&D labs, everything was working, including our field force, which had shut down only for a limited period. They were working. And if you were to take field force, manufacturing, and R&D labs of any pharma company all over the world, that's 98% of your people, okay? It's just 2% or 3% of us who sit in the head offices. Secondly, coming to the question, and Pooja, I truly believe, I think the pharma industry per se has been employee-centric. And this has been my experience even in J&J, even in AstraZeneca, and even in Lupin today. These companies are super because, they realize if you're not employee-centric, you cannot be successful. As Dr. Tanaya mentioned, we operate in an industry, especially the generic industry, the one that we are talking about, the India pharma multinational companies, where you're dealing with continuous price erosion, okay? Because that's how the generic industry works. So you have to continuously keep improving your efficiency and your productivity in your manufacturing operations, like supply chain, the entire supply chain, entire demand chain, and entire innovation engine, which is how do you develop, more and more newer drugs that will come as soon as the patents are getting over. But also what has happened is many of the Indian pharma companies now have also gone into new chemical entity research. Okay, Lupin was one of them. In fact, we commercialized and have, tied up with large pharma MNCs where our new chemicals that were, discovered at our Pune R&D are now getting commercialized. Okay, so not just, your generics, which is branded generics or unbranded generics. Those are still the pillars, okay, of the business. But you have also moved to specialty, complex generics. Then you have moved to, new chemical entity. So the Indian pharma industry has come of age, and it is. So one of the reasons why companies like Lupin or companies like Alchem or companies like Strides or, these have become what they have become is because they have been employee-centric. Let's make no mistake about it. So I don't see employee centricity as a huge challenge in the pharma industry. No, I don't. Very honestly, because you look at any company, and whenever I talk to any of my colleagues like Rajoshi or, Dr. Tanya, I'm sure this is a great connect I've had with her. I'll interact with her more now. There's so much to learn from what each company is doing in terms of employee centricity. And Pooja, you'll not believe, but I think the Indian pharma industry is like a benchmark for many other companies, which used to be FMCG earlier, okay, that they reach out to you. And this handling of the COVID pandemic, the way Lupin did it, the way we did it, the way Rajoshi did it, Alchem or Dr. Tanaya or Strike, why did we do it so well? We did it so well because we are employee-centric, okay? So everything was on the go. It was all about making sure your employees are safe while they are coming to work. It was all about ensuring that their psychological safety, their mental wellness, their health, their productivity, their efficiency at work, 360, you are taking care of the employee. And it did cost us heavily, because majority of the companies, at least Lupin I can talk about, we doubled our insurance for that pandemic period, for medical as well as for hospitalization, because we didn't want the employees to be hit and we didn't want the company to be hit. So the insurance premiums were at the all-time high, right? We all did that. We made sure that the program, free vaccination, I don't even want to mention, because but making sure that getting your people vaccinated was a huge task. Making sure that their families are vaccinated was a huge task, because your employee is going to go back to that same family and is going to live there. So all this comes from employee centricity. All the companies that I know that operate in India, which are of repute, and the ones being represented on this panel, they all have employee assistance programs. And none of them were put during the pandemic. So that's what, because if in Indian pharma or any other pharma company, if you're not employee centric, you cannot succeed. So we are, and that's why it happened a lot. So since that was just a comment, and Rajshri, I totally agree with you what you said. There is so much to do, even more. So let me not convey that there's nothing left for Indian pharma industry to do in employee centricity. There's lots more that we can do. Okay. Getting insights, so one of the things that we did is we got very deep insights from our employees over the past 2.5 years in terms of what do they really want. Okay. Instead of relying on the yearly, dipstick or detailed Gallup surveys in terms of employee engagement. No, this was like, and the insights have been terrific. People want to stay near their parents if possible, so that they can provide care. Now that has changed because of this pandemic. So as a company, how can you enable that? If you can. Now there are jobs that we have in our companies which cannot be performed from home. Majority of the jobs of the Indian pharma industry cannot be performed from home. How can you perform a factory job or a R&D lab job, okay, or a sales job from home? You cannot. Yes, there are elements of it that you can do from home, and that's why you then provide some flexibility, right? So those are the kind of things, Pooja, and there's a lot more to do, but I think I take pride. We are very good at that. So I take a pause there.
Thank you, Yashwant. And I totally agree that the Indian pharma industry has come of age, and the employee-centric work culture is behind that. And the pharma industry has also withstood many economic shocks. And the fact that it grew 18% in the year 2020 to 2021, when we were hit by the pandemic, also, really proves that really, talent is well taken care of in the industry. And I also agree that employee-centric culture entails taking 360-degree care of employees. Now, moving on, technology is the key here to help enhance experience throughout the employee life cycle. To that point, Tanaya, I'd like to ask you is, how is advanced technology enabling HR to enhance employee experience?
Of course, everybody is using different kinds of search engines, whether it's LinkedIn or otherwise, to be able to pull and attract the kind of people that you want, right? Then you have chatbots who are, trying to understand, you don't even, like Yashwant was saying, you don't necessarily have to wait. It's an immediate response. So just like, it's instant gratification for everybody. So similarly, employees also want to be heard immediately. So for doing that instantly, you would have to have, some kind of a tool or some kind of so we use the chatbots to identify right from day one whether the person is happy. Then there's 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days to understand what is the employee really saying, right? And then we have different apps like this is the Amber app that we have. Then we have the Seek app. We have this entire framework of We Care, which stands for, each of them stands for something. So We stands for, say, wellness. So which means mental wellness, physical wellness, financial wellness. So each of them is, is of course, it's a medium of one to many. So you're trying to use different techniques to be able to understand and also to give you dashboards, and therefore a kind of a big data or a predictive indices to be able to take proactive, not prescriptive, but proactive actions to understand exactly what the employee issues are. There was a question on productivity. So we also map productivity in terms of trying to understand through digitization, whether it is on the shop floor or whether it is in the supply chain, to understand, how do we ensure that we move up. Today, a lot of companies are moving to hybrid now, and I completely agree with the rest of the speakers that, we don't have a hybrid model. We did, except in the corporate office, everybody was out there. But even if you're out there, you need to ensure that you have that kind of sandbagging or those kind of systems to ensure your NOC, your SOC, your LAN, your WAN is kind of wired to be able to move ahead and to understand that, people are talking to each other, or cloud are talking to each other, or, your systems are working to each other without ensuring that, it is going outside. So in every aspect, whether it is understanding what the rewards and recognition are, and therefore recognizing the employees right there and then through an app. So every bit of an employee life cycle, today you have everything available on your phone, because you want to be in touch with employees. You want to understand what is the feedback. So you're not going to wait for something to happen. You just think that, okay, if this is not working well, what is it that I can do? And then you're taking immediate, so you're pushing information out and you're pulling information in. And that can only happen if you digitize your systems and processes and create an employee experience. We believe in, and I completely agree with what the rest of the speakers are saying, that we are, as a pharma company, and I speak on behalf of all my colleagues and fraternity here, that we are a people first company, all of us.
I can actually feel the closeness, which we do a lot of roundtables with different industry specific groups, but that energy which is visible here is not visible there.
So Pooja, I want to come in here and build on what Dr. Tanaya has mentioned, because I think she has said it very well. Okay, so you have to understand where the technology adoption is happening. Okay, in the pharma industry. And let me draw your attention that is also happening at a very fast pace, and it's happening well. In fact, if I may make an informed statement, some of the Indian pharma multinationals are way ahead on the curve when it comes to that. But I want to pick up from where Shivaditya had left. Okay, we have to understand that what is the difference between, say, digitization versus becoming a data-driven company. Okay, because that will bring about more clarity. So for that, you have to understand, there are platforms and applications, and we keep talking about that a lot. So, like I have SuccessFactors as the global platform, and there are various applications for our people. You have Salesforce for our salespeople, but those are platforms and applications. Okay, what you call as products. That's threshold. That's over. It's happened. We have gone beyond that. Okay. Now, you look at, so say in R&D, okay? In R&D, all the companies, we do a lot of toxicology studies, okay? Digital pathology is what is going to come in, because digital pathology was brought into this world by Philips, an organization that I work for the human pathology, right? So what happens is that the amount of man-hours that go into analyzing the slides that you create of a blood or a urine sample or something, and then you analyze it with a microscopic computer or whatever, and then, it was highly manualized process. Now, when that has got digitized, there's a whole lot of AI and machine learning that was brought into it, okay? Where you can just enter the slide in a computer today, and it gives you an analysis, and the US FDA has approved it, okay? Now, the same is applicable because we do a lot of toxicology studies, okay? Most of the companies which, supply to US and Europe and Australia, you have to have toxicology studies because that's how those regulatory agencies approve it. Now, imagine digitization happening in toxicology. My goodness, the amount of value that you create. Now, that is, to me, a technological adoption of a higher level. Similarly, when you come to sales, e-detailing by your sales rep to the doctor using an iPad. Well, 100% of our sales force is on iPads for the past 3 years. So that to me is not, moving the needle. I mean, that is threshold. But digital therapeutics, digital therapeutics is a new business model, which is nothing but a triangle between the company, the physician, and the end user, which is the patient, and enabling them to manage their disease better when they are taking your medication and when they are getting advice by their doctor. So, and the kind of work that Lupin is doing is cutting edge work. And I also know of the work that Dr. Reddy's is doing in that area. I'm sure, Strides and Alchem may be also doing. I'm really not aware of it, but when we benchmark and when we do it, so those are the newer business models that will come up, not only for supporting patients and doctors, but also as revenue generating stream. Okay. And so on and so forth. I just given you 2 business examples where you've gone beyond platform and products or applications. Application software, you talk about an app of a leave management and that's threshold. It's above that now. But the key question here is, and this is something that we were also talking yesterday, right, Pooja, when you and me were discussing, you see, you look at what is happening is the next tech revolution is going to be on data. Everyone knows it. First one was on digitization. The previous one was on platforms and applications. Then now this is on digitization. And the difference between automating a process or digitizing a process is very different from being a digital data-driven company where you're using real intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, such as the toxicology example that I gave, such as the digital therapeutics example that I gave. How can we build, data-driven management capabilities in the organization is the biggest challenge right now, if you ask me. It is the biggest challenge for the Indian pharma companies. Because not just for the Indian pharma, it is the same thing is for other industries also, okay? Because there's so much of data out there. And by using machine learning, by using artificial intelligence, it's all about trying to get insights and knowledge from that scattered and ambiguous data sets, but for that, companies will have to collaborate. Like I'll give you an example. I can do my own hiring analysis, but it will never be big data. Even if you put 200 companies together to do their hiring analysis, still that data size will not be big data. Okay. But to do an hiring analysis, that what kind of talent we are trying to hire from where, what kind of skill shortages are there. If, Lupin, Strides, Alchem, Cipla, DRL were all come together and say that, look, guys, we can't do this on our own. We need to do big data hiring analysis for the industry per se. And you still will not lose your competitive advantage because what you want to hire and what strategies you want to adopt will be based on the insights and information that you get. That kind of collaboration is lacking today. Okay. Because, and I say this with humility, even to myself, I am a keen student of technology for many years and I study it, self-taught, okay? But I still feel that many of us and most of the CHROs that I interact with today are desired to be, taken their skill levels up to even understand this in depth and detail. That is where we'll build the data, capabilities. And I just wanted to pick this up because Shivaditya started off by saying this very well and understand the difference, between what you automate. If you automate a packaging machine, well, that isn't digitization. When you automate that packaging machine and you connect it to the tablet making machine, that is digitization. But when you have connected all your machines and you're able to make analysis of that data in terms of insights and knowledge, that is data-driven technology usage, using AI, MI, real intelligence, all of it. We have to get there because the first two are threshold. Companies which have crossed it, well done. If you have not crossed it, you've lost the battle. So I just wanted to make that point And I don't know if the others would agree or not agree, but I think
this is a very interesting perspective, Yash. And I'm so glad that as an HR leader, you're talking about integrating technology in the flow of work and disrupting business models. Because end of the day, automation also leads to HR playing a bigger role in business. This also gives us,
something. I think the days of HR just being just a function is no more relevant. I think I think this thing of playing a seat on the table and all that is completely passé. I think all of us have to be business leaders to be able to understand, to make a difference. Otherwise, we'll never be able to make a difference. It's not about creating a policy or just an employee experience. You've got to understand, what are the productivity models, as like somebody was asking, and then how do you ensure that you get in there and you make the difference for the business and the people in it. So
yes, exactly. By automating tasks that can be automated, you also enable human to do, more superior work of, problem solving and thinking, where repetitive tasks can be automated. And Yash has also led us to the point of discussing data insights. And Shivatati, I'd like to ask you is currently when we are facing talent crunch, there is a war for talent, there is talks about great resignation. How are you overhauling talent attraction and retention roadblocks through data and insightful technologies?
Sure, Pooja. So, I think a lot of thought-provoking points came, and I just got absorbed in the COVID days. I think that definitely was a moment of pride for all of us, back then, and thankfully we are out of it now. But I think coming back to your question, Pooja, I think importantly, the challenges that we have that you spoke about, one is certainly retention. That's a huge thing, and we are in the era of great resignation. And, of course, because we say retention, it puts as much pressure on getting the talent in, so recruitment and talent acquisition also becomes equally important. And the third challenge that we see is upskilling. I think upskilling or reskilling, both of course are different, but I think both are required in equal measure, depending on what areas we are speaking about. So let me pick you, and I'll be very HR specific here and telling you a few examples here. And I'm speaking of higher order data analytics where we've made use, and I'm happy to share it in this forum. I think one certain thing that we've done is predictive attrition model. It close to me because I think I've also worked along with the team here. Now there, looking at your talent profile, depending on your gender, age, your marriage status, or the number of children you've had, or the manager with whom you've worked for the longest period of time, the 20 such parameters which go into it. And for every individual, there is a likely predictive attrition percentage that the system throws up. So it's an algorithm which has got built over historical data, and with that we are able to get it. Now I think here there's a very fine nuance that I need to draw here, Pooja, is that the output of such algorithms, especially in the area of talent, could be sometimes reinforcing the biases, the unconscious biases that we are trying to remove. So what happens is, if the data may throw up that, a particular age and a particular gender, is likely to leave within 1 year. Is the idea being not to take them? One might decide a temporary tactical move to do that for the very, very short term because of business urgencies. But the right way to do it is, you have to understand why it's a challenge for them, why are they leaving, and what can we do about it. And that's where I think a lot of talent analytics, where you build in workforce demographics to give you an output data, it's important to be seen with a lot of discretion, judgment, and a very fine lens of subjective calibration. And I think that's where I think we excel. I think a lot of these data, while they show this data, we know as in how to work on it. But certainly I can tell you, when you look at those percentages, applying something like this, at times when we had initially seen it about 3 years back, just appeared like a miracle. Some of the other things that we've, done, and certainly the learning, whatever you wish to democratize, the idea is that use technology, use a platform, use something and just make it one experience for the entire organization. So chatbot, we've got a chatbot on Lina AI. So the idea is that the basic minimum time to answer a query has to be the same for every employee, be it in HO or in the manufacturing location. We are taking it to the next level. If the chatbot is able to take actions on behalf of the employee, I think that is something, that's the direction we are taking. We give a lot of nudges to the employee, etc. on it also. The LMS that we are working on, the learning management system, there I can tell you, what we've done is we've looked at the days and slots in the days on which the maximum learning content gets consumed. And those are few hours on Wednesday and Thursday. And typically the learning nudges go during that time. Similarly, we've seen the kind of courses that everybody does on the LMS. And, depending on what they've done, there's a lot of data which we have. And we've run an engine and we try to send learning recommendations from time to time to various people. I can tell you in a consumer products, to speak about the sales side, a similar performance modeling has been done, in an area where attrition was high, that, what kind of talent profile is likely to succeed. But, as I said, I think there's enough and more that is being done, while I state this, I'm sure as other, speakers speak about it, I would realize that, this is also something that we've done already past doing that, etc. But I can tell you, it's the flavor of the season across everything in employee life cycle, be it recognition, joining, onboarding, the first 6 months, pre-onboarding, engagement before a candidate joins in. Everywhere touch points are being established. And I think that's a key place where technology should be looked at, as an enabler.
Firstly, congratulations on your predictive attrition model, Shivaditya. And, I really want to reiterate one point that you made, is that sometimes this predictive analysis can let unconscious bias seep in. So, about your subjective calibration and also weighted average method is extremely important to not completely rely blindly on these predictions, especially, in matters of D&I and hiring and all that. So as we've already established, the pharma industry is characterized as highly scientific, research-oriented, and adopter of cutting-edge technology for its product. How is digital transformation enabling HR to respond quickly and effectively to changes and challenges in the business environment? And we've all seen that, business environment is continuously challenged because of various, global political situations. Rajarshi?
Yeah, I think it's a very broad question, and my other colleagues have already brought out Yash, Tanaya, and they have already given the perspective. See, my take on this question would be, today, if you look at, we call about digital transformation, so on and so forth. I think, look, every organization have, they have reached a certain stage where, most of the things which a technology can do should be done by technology. And it's not just in the HR function. For example, if I take my own example, last couple of years, we have almost eliminated anything to do with paper. So today we don't see paper in our office as far as, the human resource processes is concerned. And I see that happening in my procurement function, in my supply chain, in my finance. Everywhere they are using technology. Now, what is also happening is that the more and more we use technology, it's also enabling us to respond to the market very fast. For example, today, compared to, let's say, 3-4 years back, today, all my business heads, they sit on a live dashboard on, a very simple human resource analytics. Let's say even 3 years back, it was for example, Alchem, and I can give example of Alchem. We have one of the highest number of field force in the country. I don't know whether I should be proud of or not, but that's how the fact is. When you manage 12,000 workforce, field force spread across 800 towns and cities of the country, the business managers need to be enabled on a real-time basis. And we were really struggling with this because some people leaving, joining, we were not aware, there was a lag in the data flow. Versus today, every day morning, you sit on a live data and you can really see across your headquarters what's happening, where there is a resignation, why that resignation is happened. And that's enabling the team to quickly respond. And if I look at, this is happening across. For example, the other example that I may take on the learning part, most of us, I'm sure it's a story with all the companies, including pharma companies. The earlier days, the learning was confused or was, related with everybody needs to come to a physical center, gather, get trained and go back. Now we are realizing that, we have probably accelerated our learning 3-4 times without the need to come to a single place. How that is happening? Today, we have enabled all our employees, and especially I'll talk about sales because they are very distributed. They are learning anywhere, anytime. When this is a phrase we all hear, but actually we are doing it. For example, if a medical rep is sitting and waiting for the doctor in the clinic, they are updating themselves with the brands and the medical information. How they are doing it, we have enabled that. We use something called Alkepedia. It constantly releases information, bite-sized videos on the scientific literature. So what's happening is, on all these fronts, people are finding that technology has somehow, kind of blended into their life, and is helping them to respond also very fast, because if there is an issue, the technology is helping us in all spheres of life. I'll take one last example, the procurement process, which is typically quite a bit of tedious process in most companies. We completely kind of use technology over the last 2 years, I would say. And today it's such a kind of a delightful experience to go through that. Sometimes, at my level also, we need to go through that. So these are some of the things today that, is helping HR and, every business manager to respond very fast. In fact, in the coming financial year, one goal I have taken for my own function is anything which technology can do, the humans will not do in my department. And that's a stiff task. Having said so, we cannot let go of the human part of human resource. So let's also understand, let's not get swayed by technology. While technology will do the routine part of our job, you can't leave the hriday of the human resource. The heart has to be there. So let's not forget that. So I think with preserving the heart of the human resource, I think rest technology has really kind of enabled all of us.
Thanks for sharing those wonderful examples, Rajoshi. And later on, we will discuss where to find the sweet spot in automating jobs and leaving jobs for human as well, India being a very overly populated country. But first, I'd like to get Deepa in. Deepa's representing SAP, and I'd like to ask her, how is SAP helping pharma industry scale their tech adaptation?
Thank you, Pooja. So yeah, see, SAP is a technology provider, right? So with our entire end-to-end human experience solution, we are helping our pharma clients, pharma organizations simplify not only the way they create and manage various hire to retire interventions. However, we have truly reinvented employee experience to accelerate business growth through our comprehensive, I would say, comprehensive and intelligent ETHRWORLD suite, right? So for this, we have, our developed technology, our platform, or I would say we have enhanced our platform capabilities for this new normal, right? By being, digital ready, or for business continuity, keeping, remote working in mind. So up till now, it was, we have focused, right, on specific milestones that were essential for HR. But now it becomes mission critical to deliver experiences, right? Experiences which put employee at the first place, right? So by saying experiences, these are, those key moments, or I would say meaningful moments that influence employee decisions, right? So it's very important for an organization to understand what is important for their employees and what moments are important, and how they look at the experience in those moments, right? is organization able to make all the relevant or the personal experiences to the employees, or employees are getting whatever they want anytime, anywhere, or even if they are able to figure out the deliverable, is it that easy to action on it for an employee? So all these things, right, enhancing, and also with having workforce working remotely these days, most of the workforce still working remotely. So do they have that sense of collaboration? Do they have that sense of support during this crisis time? So enhancing collaboration is again a very important aspect to it, right? So be it across employees, and it should be across employees or HR leadership or operations or external auditors, regulatory bodies, anything and everything who is associated with the organization. Enhancing collaboration and having that very intrinsic environment within the organization, as I heard one of the leader mentioning about having workplace designing. So it is not with regards to the physical workplace designing, but I believe it is more of an emotional work design for an employee associated to the organization, right? So while we are working towards providing experiences to the employees, but at the same time, I would rather say that we are working towards improving human experience, right? Enhancing employee well-being by maximizing safety at workplace, or standardizing the workflows for cases, incidents, grievances, anything, right? Or let's say civil service rules with full integration with policy rule books, with the searchable engine. So while we are working on all these aspects and providing best-in-class experience to a pharma industry, right? And all of these things which we are providing, and the experiences which we are providing, and the technology which we are providing, right? This is all supported with very much data analytics, AI, machine learning, and in fact, human learning with real intelligence. So while we are working towards providing best-in-class experience to a pharma customer, to a pharma industry, one thing which we do not compromise is the regulatory compliances, right? That the pharma clients have to adhere, especially in highly regulated and audited environment.
Thank you, Deep, for sharing that. Very interesting. And I totally agree that employee experience is critical for a future-ready workforce strategy. And collaboration and skilling are two essential, pillars for employee experience. Tanaya, I'd like to ask you, how is HR tech enabling you to personalize experience, skilling, internal and international mobility of employees across all levels in the organization?
There are different kinds of licenses that you need. So there is, like a host country and a home country, and the skills that are required. So there is a lot of licensing, which needs to happen for us to be able to source our talent anywhere. What we're doing is primarily we're trying to understand really what are those critical roles which are very, very important for the business, as well as for the facility, as well as for the country. Because we are primarily a B2B business and not so much a B2C business. And we're trying to have it centralized. So therefore, to cut the long story short, there are different pieces to this. One is that we are looking at our overall workforce. We are introducing restructuring. We are introducing digitization and getting rid of workforce wherever it's not needed, because we feel that it's a time to cut the flab. The US markets, unfortunately for us, everybody keeps on saying that pharma companies are doing extremely well, but unfortunately for us, we are primarily exporters to different parts of the world, and primarily US, and US markets haven't been doing extremely well for us. We did acquire a large business, Endo, in the US, and we're looking at how can we swap talent, whether it is R&D or MSNT, the tech part of the pieces, to have the best in class talent across. So we are trying to see what are those pieces to move ahead. Right now we are in a state where we have started mobility. We are looking at it very, very closely. And we want it to, we want our talent to grow within the organization.
Interesting, Tanaya. Also, there is a need to develop a digital first mindset in organizations today. So, for example, when you talk about employees in the shop floor or the plant, you would want them to use the applications and use the digital tools that you have for them. As well as when you talk about a multi-generational workforce, there could be, older generation who are not so comfortable using digital tools. So how do you do that? How do you develop a digital first mindset from the top to the bottom line in the organization? Or is there a need also for it? Are people already ready for it? How is it in the pharma industry? Yash?
Okay, no, absolutely, Pooja. There is a need to develop the digital first mindset because, digitization, as I said, the various advancements of it is here to stay. And that's the future. However, I don't think so we need to be overly worried about it. So I often give these examples, it is, when you talk of banking, okay, say for example, all right. Now, high street banking in India knew, or personal banking, they knew that if they have to survive, they have to go online, okay? Because the personal banking all over the world got wound up. And that's why all these banking buildings became Starbucks cafe or, bars, etc., that you see on a high street in Amsterdam or London or anywhere, is because that cost architecture was just not enough, to service at those margin levels. So there the banks just decided, you want to come into the branch, you'll have to pay. Okay. And I used to be surprised, at that time when I was living in Amsterdam and before that in London. So if I had to go to HSBC, I had to pay £2 as a service fee if I had to go to the branch. And same was with ABN AMRO in Netherlands, right? So the consumers were forced to, do it online. So, I think these are the kind of things that we will have to learn. So there's a whole lot of training that is happening. There's a whole lot of learning that is being provided for free right now. But at some point of time, the organizations also need to first recruit for people with a digital first mindset and not spend too much money in developing that. And secondly, those who you are developing that, put it like a certification course, make it compulsory. And after 2 or 3, attempts, if you're not, then, kind of pay for it. Okay. Because I've seen that brings in some kind of seriousness. Okay. Now, this is my personal opinion and experience. We don't do this in Lupin right now. It's all done without, but this is the boardroom conversation that I have with my leaders, where I say that at some point of time, we have to ensure that it becomes mandatory. It becomes a part of your job. And if it's not there as a part of your skill set, then you are going to find it difficult to be a part of this organization or its workforce in the future. So as much as we can enable you, how can you enable yourself? So bring some kind of a forced, measure there to bring about that seriousness, rather than just, providing everything. It can't be push, right? How do you create that pull? That is the big question. But Pooja, answering your question, answer is yes. Absolutely yes. And HR has shown that way to many companies, and I take great pride in it. Today, you want to regularize your attendance. If you're working in the plant, you have to go through a process. There's no time office where you walk in and you do that. So you have to go and log in into that app. You have to go and regularize your attendance. And if you don't do it, you will not get paid, right? So a whole lot of that now the sales is doing it. Now the manufacturing will start doing it as a part of the industry 4.0 of the various things that we talked about. Okay. But yeah, those are the kind of things that we have to do. But one thing that I want to add here, is, and the challenges that organizations will face, they even face today, is the quality of your application software has to be very high. It cannot be clunky, because if it is clunky, you're going to make your digital adoption even more difficult. Because today, people expect the quality of in-house applications as superior or equally superior or more superior than the applications they use for banking on their phones, or the applications they use for, OTT platforms or for social networking. And they are very, very high quality applications, right? So you cannot provide a HR application in-house, which is very clunky, and you don't know what you're doing, and it's not user-friendly. It's not telling you something. And that's the conversation, 3 years ago, we started with SAP. Deep can talk more about it later, not now, but, James and me. He said, my entire conversation with that was that you're a platform, but there are applications, that we run on your platform, or the applications that you provide now. How can they be absolutely at the same level as a Facebook or an Instagram or your banking app of ICICI or HDFC, whatever you use, or a Netflix or, Amazon Prime, or that of an Amazon Shopping? It has to be of that level in terms of user friendliness, everything. Then it will become even more better and faster. So there is no one way. There are 3-4 things that you have to approach this from, but that's the way to do it, is my humble submission.
Yes, very interesting.
I'll just add to that, Pooja. I think one size doesn't fit all. So I think we have to understand there are 2 pieces to this. One is that at what stage is the organization in, right? So, we are moving, so we can't have knee-jerk reaction. It's like an elephant, it's the entire thing has to move together, right? And it's different parts, right? So there are parts which the people at the junior level or at the technical officer level, or, we will have to equip with, right? Your middle management would need a different kind of skills and digitization skills to upgrade. Today, all the manufacturing sites usually are paperless. So yes, Rajesh, just like you, we do not have paper in the manufacturing. But yes, I do have some paper and I'm making some notes. But again, senior leadership has to be therefore tuned to be thinking in a particular way as we move ahead. Similarly is the safety of systems. And Yashwant, you spoke about banking systems. They have about 7 security layers. And the Indian banking system is safer because than the international banking, right? But so in terms of the overall look and appeal and graphic user interface and the engines, yes, you're right. We definitely are investing a lot. Is it is it enough? We can't say at this point in time. But are we in the right direction? Yes, it's in the right direction. It has to be, a bite-sized learning for everybody, because look, as we move forward, it can't be that, we dump everything at the same time. People have to understand, digest, and then move on. So that's what I wanted to elaborate from what Yash was saying.
Yes, and I also want to take this opportunity to, continue with where Yash left us. When we talk about applications that we have for the customers, generally the experience is far better. When we talk about applications we have for employees, so, when we talk about EX is equal to CX, we must also be conscious of what kind of applications are we giving our employees, the user interface and user experience. Do they give that kind of a superior experience? Moving on, we know tech is...
Sorry, Pooja, I'm going to add a little bit here. Yes. So let's also understand that, we are in the phase of a metaverse. So which means that, we will have different kinds of workforce coming in, and therefore are we future ready to have this kind of a workforce that's coming in?
Thanks for that point. So, we know tech is an enabler, and we also, as all of you alluded, that, tasks are getting automated. So tech is also a replacer. So where does the sweet spot lie in balancing automation, especially in the Indian context? Shivaditya.
I think, Pooja, I'll just add on to, I think one thing that both Yash and Tanaya mentioned. I think one thing that we sort of, neglect is, and, I'll come to your question. I just wanted to add that point. There has to be investment in the digital transformation office. It is it should have its own change management cell. It needs to have its own, value realization, as a separate cell, which looks at ROI of so much of investment that goes into all of this, automation and tech and whatnot. So I think, getting them fully enabled, we have come from times where, IT used to report into finance. And IT's year-on-year role used to be to do the same job with lesser budget. And now we are speaking about high-scale tech. So I think this has been a huge transition, and the best thing is we don't realize it that much. But I think it's important that the people who will bring about that change, they need to be manned adequately. They need to have a COE structure with a separate SAP, infra, analytics, and whatnot. And I think that's when I think you'll see that this picks up momentum and becomes a movement. So I think the subject matter experts have to be there and have to be sufficiently empowered. Now, coming to your question, Pooja, I think it's, one more important thing that I want to add, in your question is the moment we look at it as a replacer, it just, it just fiddles our brain in a very different way, right? Our friendship with technology suddenly starts dying down. I think one important thing that we need to do as communication to everybody on the shop floor is that, technology is there as an enabler. It is there to elevate your performance. It is there to improve your efficiency and accuracy, to have you better work-life balance and to make you, less stressed about work. And that's where these are tools. These are tools who can't do politics with you, who can't think on their own. You have to exploit them to make it work for you. And I think that's the kind of communication which needs to go to all levels, especially levels which are very junior. Having said that, I think one thing which is clearly expected out of everybody, including the unskilled workforce, is that they will have to start skilling themselves. Unless they skill themselves, they will not remain relevant and contemporary. And it will be difficult for us to, carry on with such people, because the fact of the matter is unskilled people are still very inexpensive and are in abundance. There's tremendous supply compared to the demand that we have. And that always gives most of the Indian organizations a backup plan. If technology doesn't work, automation doesn't work, I'll put another 5 contract labor, right? And I think that somewhere, is sometimes, may stop us from going the entire, going the extra mile, to ensure that tech really works. So I think one important, the communication within has to be strong. I think similarly, it's a change management curve. There will be anxiety eventually, and then we'll see acceptance. So we have to educate people that, consciously, this is what it will be. There will be inertia. There will be, people not wanting to change status quo, but this is the way to be. If you want to remain competent, we have to take that route, and you have to skill yourself. And more importantly, Pooja, what happens is, in a lot of these discussions, I've noticed we start looking at technology as a panacea. It is never, it's a means to an end. It's not the end, right? Yeah, at the end of the day, we are pharmaceuticals. That's our core identity. And I think, that's also something that we need to, drive home. There are B Pharm, M Pharm, doctorates, the subject matter expertise that they bring. I think we are far, far away from that point of singularity where, AI will take over a human's, ability to subjectively decide on parameters, and take a informed decision. So I think it's important that we come with a sense of security when we looked at the journey of automation and tech. And I think, that it's easier said than done, but I think conversations around this need to start. So that's how I would respond, Pooja, to this.
We just have time for one question, and I'll ask Deep, what does the future roadmap look like for HR tech?
Yeah, so see, it's definitely, the entire session is going great, right? Learning to, in fact, hearing a lot of good thoughts from the pharma leaders. But then see, when it comes to the future roadmap of, HR tech, right? So definitely, Pooja, HR is, going through digital revolution, right? And through this phase, digital revolution, or we say digital transformation, this is often used, right? But the truth is, I studied in one of the, Big Four's article. The truth is that today there are more than 7 billion mobile devices in the world, right? And more than 40% of all the internet traffic is driven by these devices. And yet, HR remains far, far behind in deploying mobile solutions, right? So while we are talking about the future roadmap in HR tech, right, it is very important to understand the combination of mobile and the cloud solutions, right? Which is actually redefining all the HR processes, how they are designed, they are delivered, they are accessed and operated as well, right? This is point one. Secondly, you would agree with me on this, Pooja. In fact, leaders will also agree with me on this, that once we have the technology change, right, it leads to the process change as well, right? So think about the organizations wherein a small, simple business change it used to take years to happen, but now the same thing is happening within days' time or in few hours, right? And with this, we need to make learning to match this as well, right? So in one of the article from Big Fours, I read that after culture and leadership, right, learning is the third topmost priority for the organizations, right? High demand for certifications, professional development, technical development, managerial development, right? And in order to manage, all these changes and increase in the adoption of the technology, it is very important to keep upskilling and reskilling the employees, right? So having that said, it is very important to focus on building skills, not only for today, but also for the future as well, through, simplified or powerful skill development or career mobility interventions. So these are some of the aspects, right, that HR tech is shaping up, for the future. And then organizations at the same time are also looking to have an excellent user experience with variety of processes. They want reduced integration challenges. They wanted to take advantage of ease of use and get more robust with reporting and analytics. And this is what we deliver as SAP, and this is what we'll keep working towards.
Thank you, Deep.
Yeah.
We are conscious of time running out, so we will have to wrap this conversation here.
Yeah.
Viewers, I really hope you found this discussion insightful and have tangible takeaways to work out. I will conclude this ETHRWORLD and SAP event by saying 2022 will be a landmark year of consolidation and integration of innovative technologies, creating tangible value from data to improve productivity and performance, customer satisfaction, employee well-being, and empowerment. Thank you, speakers, for joining us today. Thank you, viewers, for joining us as well. Thank you, everyone.